In this tutorial, we will create a split primary color wheel. If you don't know what that is, then you can watch our other video which shows you how handy these color wheels are and how the split primary color wheel works. In order to work with, please print out the template from the link below and redraw it onto a watercolor paper or a canvas. This is what the template looks like. I think you will agree that it looks pretty intimidating at this point, so let's start off and have a quick look to see what we need to do. And that way it will be easier for us to stay organized. The wheel is divided up into columns, one for each primary pair. The green biased pair, orange biased pair, and purple biased pair. There are corresponding columns for the secondaries as well as the tertiaries. Each of the blocks in each column has a specific purpose, and when the wheel is complete, create rings of similar color types, which you can reference from later. The main ring is made up of the colors directly out of the tube and mixes of those colors. This is called the chroma ring. The chroma ring in each column is then used to mix all the other colors in that column. Let's take a look at the other rings before we get started. We have a shadow ring, gray ring, highlight ring, two tint rings, and to complete the wheel we add a grayscale ring in the center. Ensure you're mixing on a large palette, or you have an area where you can store your paints while you are mixing, because there are a lot of mixes ahead. As we work, pause and play the video at each step. Okay, let's get going. We will start by completing the chroma ring. The first step is to block in the 6 primary colors in their correct blocks. These are the colors I will be using. You're welcome to substitute them for other colors as long as they conform to the bias rule. For example, you must have a yellow bias towards green, another bias towards orange, and so on. We are creating a pure wheel, which means we will not cross the lines formed by the pizza slices. This will then give us a nice vibrant color wheel. I will show you how to create less vibrant mixes by crossing the line later on in the tutorial. From these primaries we can mix the secondaries. Mix the green biased yellow with a green biased blue to get green. Mix the 2 orange biased primaries together to get orange, and mix the 2 purple biased primaries to get purple. As you mix the color, paint that color into the corresponding block on the wheel. Also, mix enough of each color, as we will be using all the colors from the chroma ring to complete the rest of the wheel, and you don't want to run out halfway through. If you mix enough paint to cover its entire column, then you know you will have enough paint for all the other mixes. Using our newly mixed secondaries, we can create the tertiary colors. Do this by mixing adjacent colors into each other. For example, mix the green biased yellow into the green to get lime green. Mix the green biased blue into green to get turquoise, and so on until the chroma ring is complete. On your palette, place each of these colors to one side, but keep them in order so it's easy to identify each one as you work. We are now going to complete the shadow ring by mixing the shadow color of each block in the chroma ring. To stay organized, I like to work according to a sequence. I first do the primary colors, then the secondary colors, and then the tertiaries. To mix the shadow of any color, you add the opposite color on the wheel. For example, to mix the shadow of yellow, you add purple. As we have 2 primaries, we add some purple to each of them to get 2 corresponding shadow colors. Do the same to get the 2 blue shadow colors and the 2 red shadow colors. When mixing the shadow color for the secondaries, you need to add the opposite primary color, but we've got 2 of them, so what do? In theory, you can use either of them, but as we're mixing the shadow color, I prefer to use the darker version of each primary. There's nothing funny about mixing the tertiary shadow colors, so we can move on to the gray ring. The gray of a color is when you add white to the shadow color. I start off by adding white to each of the primary shadow colors, then the secondary colors, and lastly the tertiary colors. When mixing these colors, what you are looking for is a distinct change in contrast between it and the original shadow color. The next ring we will mix is the highlight ring. The highlight of a color is mixed by adding the next color up on the wheel towards yellow, plus white if required. We add the next color up to keep the highlighter vibrant. For example, to mix the highlight of the purple biased blue, we add the green biased blue to it, as it is the next color up on the wheel towards yellow. For the green biased blue, we add turquoise to it, as that is the next color up on the wheel towards yellow. And the same would happen on the other side of the wheel. If the color that you have mixed isn't light enough after adding the next color up, then you can add some white to the mix until you are happy that there's a nice change in contrast between the highlight and the chroma color. But make sure that it's not too light, just enough to have a good contrast between the two. When you get to yellow, you'll see that there is no color up, so there just add white. It will still remain vibrant. Do this for the primaries, secondaries, as well as the tertiaries. Our wheel is starting to look pretty good already, isn't it? Now we can mix the tint rings. To each of the highlight colors, add a bit more white, enough to see a visible difference in tonal value when painted onto the wheel. Then add even more white to the mix in order to lighten it even further. Paint these colors onto your wheel with the lightest of the two mixes in the inner block. Here I've done it with the primaries, then the secondaries, and lastly the tertiaries. To complete the wheel, I use black and white paint to create a grayscale ring in the center as shown. So well done, you now have a fabulous and handy split primary color wheel which you can use to reference from when mixing your colors. What I recommend you do is write down which primary colors you have used to create this wheel, as you may decide to make several of these wheels using different paint color combinations later on. As mentioned earlier, this wheel is a pure wheel, meaning that we've not crossed the lines when mixing our colors. We may now want to see what the mixes would look like if we did cross the line. For this, you can use the variations template, which is also available as a download below the video. What you do with the variation chart is substitute one or more of the primaries for its across the line partner. You then complete that slice of the wheel on the variation chart as shown. For example, in this chart, we have used the orange biased yellow and the green biased blue to create the secondary and tertiary colors in the chroma ring. From there, we've completed the other blocks as per normal. For the next chart, we have used the purple biased blue and the green biased yellow. For the third variation chart, we have used both primaries outside the line. You can do the same for the orange variations as well as the purple variations. When doing this, you'll actually be amazed at the colors you get. They're often not what you're expecting to get at all. As before, remember to write down which tube colors you have used so you don't forget. I also like to write down the manufacturer of the paint as well, as colors vary from maker to maker. That way I'm certain that I will be able to recreate these colors at any time. You can now make yourself a folder containing your color wheels and your variation charts, which you can reference from as cheat sheets later on. This hard work you have done now will save you hours of headaches and mixing woes later. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you have, please visit us at onlineartlessons.com. I'll see you next time.